Hi friends, guess where I am? Remember this place? Can't wait to see you guys here next week. All right, let's keep reading Phoebe. We're on page 12. Sam Francis, who owns the Queen's Head Tavern, which is a place where people would gather to eat dinner and lunch, and especially soldiers in the army. And Sam Francis, who owns it, happened to overhear a conversation with two soldiers talking about a plan to kill George Washington. So he is talking to Phoebe, who's his daughter right now, about going to work in George Washington's house so that he could spy. She could spy and see if she can figure out who it is, right? All she has to do is spy. She doesn't have to do anything else, which means you just have to be a good listener, right? All right, so here he is. Remember this page? Talking to her. You'll tell no one who you are. You'll listen as you serve the officers of the army, and you must watch for a member of General Washington's bodyguard, someone whose name begins with T. It is this man who is supposed to carry out the plan. Every day, you and I will meet down by the market, and you can tell me what news you have. Now hear me well, Phoebe. You are to do nothing that would put you in danger. You are only to listen and tell me what you hear. Trust no one. No one. He picked up his candlestick and began to polish it once more. When he spoke this time, his voice sounded sad, but Phoebe heard more than sadness. Her father was angry. You know, Phoebe, he said, 'tis a strange freedom we're fighting for alongside George Washington. Phoebe nodded. She knew what her father meant. How could a man lead an army to win freedom if he himself owned slaves? For General Washington did own slaves, and it was said that he treated them well, but still they were slaves. And 'tis stranger yet that you and I will save him, Samuel went on, and those like us will have no share in that freedom he's fighting for. But maybe, Phoebe said, when the patriots win their freedom, they'll let the slaves go free too. Maybe then everyone will be free. Samuel shook his head. I think not, daughter, he said, but maybe one day. Then he looked at Phoebe and smiled. Here now, get on with your polishing. It won't do to have tonight's dinner set off by dull candlesticks. Okay, I am going to show you two pictures. We will talk about them next week when we're together, okay? It's kind of a conversation that we could have together about history and George Washington. And so it was that a few days later, Phoebe packed 2 clean aprons and a bottle of her father's best cider into a bundle and said goodbye to her family and set off to save George Washington's life. Mortier House was just a few blocks from the Queen's Head, but Phoebe felt as if she were going miles and miles away from home as she slowly made her way through the narrow, winding, crowded streets. A cold, damp wind blew in off the harbor. Everywhere it seemed men were pushing carts. They rattled over the cobblestones loaded with guns and ammunition. Soldiers were everywhere shouting orders. War was in the air. Okay, here is Phoebe at the house at her new job. And here, okay, wait a minute. This is not working very well, huh? All right, here are the streets of New York. You can see the carts with guns and ammunition. There's Phoebe and soldiers all around. Okay, page 18. Mortier House sat high on a hill with a carpet of grass around it that reached away to the large, beautiful trees beyond. There was a small storage house to one side with a hen house and yard where several chickens pecked and scratched contentedly. Phoebe followed the long drive to the back of the house, wondering how soon she would meet someone whose name began with T and what she would do when she did. Mortier House was quiet and calm, quite a change from the busy street, but here too, war was in the air. A tall, thin woman opened the back door. She looked very surprised when Phoebe told her who she was. "Why, you're nothing but a child," she said. "How are you going to take care of this big place?" "I'm strong," replied Phoebe, standing as tall as she could, "and I work hard. I'll have no trouble." The woman looked at her doubtfully. "Well," she said, "leastways you talk right up. I'm Mary. I cook. This here's Pompey," she continued as a boy about 8 appeared from behind her. "He's my boy. He'll be help to you, bringing in firewood and such like that." She led Phoebe through room after room of beautiful shining furniture, upstairs and more stairs, across carpeted floors, all silent and waiting. Okay, here she is, the cook, and oh man, that's son. And there's Pompey, her son. He's a cute little guy. Finally, on the top floor of the house, they stopped before a door that Mary opened into a tiny room. It contained a small window and a narrow cot. "This is yours," she said. "I'm in the kitchen should you need me." Soon as the door closed, Phoebe sank down on the cot. Already she missed the Queen's head and her father. If she were home now, she'd be helping him ready the tables for dinner. At the thought of her father, Phoebe rocked back and forth on the cot in despair. Anyone know what despair means? You can let me know in the comments if you know what despair means, what you think it means. Or tell me, are you happy or are you upset? Still clutching her bundle, how could she take care of this big, quiet, unfriendly house with its gleaming floors and stiff furniture? And take care of General Washington, too. She could not do it. Her father had asked too much. Here's poor little Phoebe. That's her new room. That's her bed. How does she look to you guys? I think she's excited about her new job. After a while, she stood up and walked toward the window. She could see out over much of the city. This is the last page we'll read, okay, guys? Over there was the fort. Here were the harbor and the tall spire of Trinity Church. And could it be? She looked harder. Yes, it was. There, among all the dark brown and black roofs of the other building, was the bright red tiled roof of the Queen's Head. It stood out like a flag, almost like a signal. And suddenly, Phoebe did not feel so hopeless. She wasn't so far from home, after all. She would see her father every day, and she was to do nothing by herself. He had said so. His words came back to her. "I only want you to try, daughter." Phoebe sighed and began to untie her bundle. Okay, and here is what she sees out her window. What would you find at a harbor? Anybody want to tell me? And there's the fort, and she can see the Queen's Head from her room. All right, we are on page 22 now, boys and girls, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye.